Welcome, darlings. Today is day 2 of our Halloween week. I'm joined by Papa Scare and PA Nightmares to bring these ghost stories together that I talked to into getting for us. Remember to subscribe so you do not miss a single day of this week. Now, turn off your lights. Make sure your doors and windows are locked. Things are about to get spooky. After a grueling 12-hour shift and a tasteless meal and a long bus ride home, I stumbled into my tiny, dark apartment, opened a beer, and collapsed on the couch in front of the TV. Tomorrow, it will be the same, and the day after, and the day after that, and the day after that, and the day after that. Guardian Angels by Caterpillar Puzzle 32. I've told this story many times to others that are non-believers. I'm sorry if there's any spelling mistakes due to English not being my first language, and I also want to mention that this is my first one, but here we go. Before I start telling the story, I want to tell you about the dog my grandparents had. Her name was Billy, and we were one soul. She died at a really young age due to kidney failure. And to understand how close we were, we did everything together. I even understood when she wanted to tell me something. I never experienced something like that with an animal, but she was very special. And the most important thing that has to do with this story is that she always wanted to protect me. Now to the story. As a child, I practiced handball for many years. I always walked to my practices, and to go there, I had to cross a street. I crossed this street thousands of times before, but sadly, a lot of people don't care about the speed limit and go a lot faster. My mother made me very paranoid about crossing streets and getting hit by a car, so I always checked multiple times if a car was coming or not. So little me checked if there was safe to go, and when I was sure no car was coming, I went my way. As soon as I stepped foot on the road, a car was racing towards me at very high speeds. My 7 to 8-year-old self honestly thought at that moment, okay, that was it. I'm going to die. Until I felt 2 strong arms wrap around my stomach and a tug on my leg. I was now back on the sidewalk and the car flew by. Someone saved me, I thought in my head. With tears in my eyes, I turned around to thank the person that just saved me from death. But there was nobody, not a single soul. The weird thing is that normally there are always people walking by or cars driving past the street. But not this time. I was very confused and went home totally forgetting where I was originally heading. As I walked into my flat, my mother looked at me and said something about me looking like I'd seen a ghost. Well, I guess kinda. I told my mother what happened, and she said that one of my guardian angels must have saved me. She told me about my great-grandfather had passed away before my birth. That night, I dreamt about a man with a big, bushy eyebrows and my dog Billy next to him. So I went up to him to say hi and thanked him for taking care of my dog. Some years later, I finally saw a picture of my great-grandfather for the first time ever, and I was shocked. He was the man I saw in my dream that night. I truly believe that they saved me that day. I was shocked when the doctor told me I was technically dead for 3 whole minutes. Time moves quite differently in hell.
I saw something that I wasn't supposed to see. Posted by 6,081 miles.
Narrated by PA Nightmares.
I was once working as a receptionist at a 5-star resort that's about 45 minutes away from the city center. Everyone who has worked in tourism and or hospitality knows that there are certain periods during the year where it's busier than usual, i.e. peak season. The incident happened during peak season. The resort was overbooked and guests were checking into their rooms one after another at the reception counter. I was almost done checking in as a lovely couple when I saw a family of 5 standing behind them, and I tried to finish up the whole check-in process so I could assist the family that was next in line. You must be thinking when I said family of 5, it's the parents and the 3 kids, right? But it's actually 2 kids and 1 elderly woman, who at the time I assumed was either the husband or wife's mother. Now, the resort's policy was to get the details of every guest that was staying in the resort, and it's for good reason, safety. It's the same reason that all the airlines are doing when they obtain their passengers' information. So I told the husband that we need everyone's details, and he just said, sure, no problem. And of course, I was expecting 5 names on the registration form. By the time I realized that there were only 4 names, the family was already at the concierge area to pick up their luggage, and then left to go to their room. I couldn't go after them as I was assisting another guest. Like I said, it was peak season, so all I could do was just watch them from afar, walking towards the elevators, then disappearing from sight. The whole time they were walking, the older woman just followed them from behind quietly, but I didn't give much thought to it. I went right back to assisting the guest that was right in front of me. After the buzz had died down, at around 4 p.m., I decided to ring the family's room to inform them that they were missing details. The husband came down to the reception alone, and I told him I needed the info of his or his wife's mother's info. The man just stood there, stared at me for what felt like a minute, and said, "It's only my wife and I and our 2 kids." Me being confused obviously said, "But, sir, I saw that there were 5 of you." At this point, I thought he was lying to avoid paying for a third person's charge for one of the rooms. They got 2 rooms, and one room only had enough amenities for 2 people. Same goes for the buffet breakfast that's included. He took another minute and asked me what did this elderly woman look like. To which I explained that she had gray hair and it was short, like a bob haircut. I also told him that she was wearing this red Chung Sam shirt, similar to this, with long black slack pants. Right after I told him that, he quickly took out his phone, frantically scrolled for a few seconds, and showed me a picture of the same woman in the same clothing, lying in a coffin that had a clear glass cover so you could still see inside. I just nodded slightly, and he said it's his mother. She died unexpectedly a few months ago. I was, to no surprise, too shocked to say anything at this point, but somehow managed to mutter the words, "I'm so sorry for your loss, sir, and I'm so sorry about this." He said it was okay, gave me a small smile, and left without saying anything. When they checked out 2 days later, we just pretended like the whole thing never happened. Luckily enough, the elderly woman was not there. Still get goosebumps just thinking about it to this day.
"I'll be your server," she said as she placed a menu before me on the table. My blood ran cold when she smiled at the empty seat across from me, set down a kid's menu, and walked away. What Could Have Been by Gears19925. Narrated by Papa Scare.
When I was a kid, I'd see all sorts of shit in the house I grew up in. Talking full-body shadow figures that my dogs could see and react to, too. Footsteps up and down the basement stairs all night every night. The company could hear and ask about. Even one night while my friends and I were playing pool in the basement, a random basketball bounced from a shelf on one side of the room around the corner to the pool table and just stopped to just roll underneath the table, in full view of everyone there. My friends who were there still talk about that one today. My mum and grandma both had their own experiences. Everything from my mum being pushed down the stairs to my grandma having the TV remote flung out of her hand. Despite all that, I've always been a harsh skeptic. The only room in that house safe from the nonsense was my own room. My girlfriend, now wife, experienced it in the house before the fire. And she used to say she was afraid of the house apart from my room. That there was a very clear barrier that my own space had. I had another friend say something similar to me at one point. The only safe space in my house was whatever room I happened to be in. This particular friend was bigger and older than me. When the house burned down and they rebuilt, my girlfriend, now wife, was living with me and my family. She had a run-in with something much more aggressive. She sat at the computer in the kitchen facing away from the table, working on her resume. I was in our room playing some game. She thought I was coming up behind her, so she turned around, only to come face to face with a full-formed shadow that actually had a face she could see and describe. She screamed and I sprinted out to her from down the hall. As I got to the kitchen, I could also see it. It darted from the kitchen, across the living room, and made the blind smack the windows hard as it vanished through the front of the house. From then on, she was never alone while we stayed there. Scared her bad enough to not feel safe going to the bathroom without me being in the room with her, and she'd choose to hang out in my car while I was working over staying at the house. We've never had any more experiences anywhere else that we've lived. It's only paranormal because we can't scientifically describe and break down the individual occurrences. I don't know why we experienced so much of these weird events on that property, but clearly, whatever it was didn't like me. It was only ever willing to watch me from further away, whereas those that lived in the house with me were fair game to mess with directly. Perhaps you have a similar barrier to these things. They don't happen directly to you because whatever it is can't be near you.
I've been tracking the serial killer for over a decade, almost losing my marriage, my job, and my house. But now I knew I was close. As I pored over the maps, notes, letters, and photographs pinned to the garage wall, I looked at one, noticing something odd when my wife's voice whispered in my ear, "Well, now you know." Is a demonic entity stalking my son? By Situation Piston 308. I have a major question. To start, I've been completely open to anything paranormal and have even captured pictures and recordings before. However, nothing ever affected me, nor have I seen anything with my own two eyes before. Okay, to start, I'm a new father. My son was born at the end of June, and we got to bring him home to our apartment in July. We have lived in our current apartment for around 6 months and haven't experienced any paranormal activity until we brought our newborn son home from the hospital. Not long after we brought our son home, the first thing that happened was me and my wife were talking in our bedroom, when out of the corner of my eye, I see a white ball of light leave our closet and shoot straight into the floor, and we are on the second story. At first I didn't say anything. I finished my sentence and then I looked over towards the closet. My wife noticed I was looking that way, and then she asked if I saw the same thing as she saw. And yes, we saw the exact same thing. Since then, not a lot has happened. We would find doors and cabinets open or closed when we don't remember leaving them that way. Now, before I get into why I'm writing this, I want to say that we have 2 cats that we've had for 4 years. They are amazing cats that are insanely nice to us and strangers. Yesterday I woke up with the back of my neck stinging really badly, so I stood up and felt it, only to feel 3 marks on my back of my neck. My son is asleep in his crib, and my wife is awake at the time, sitting next to me reading. Our cats weren't anywhere nearby. My wife sees the scratches, and at first we blow it off thinking it had to be the cat's. However, the more I thought about it, the more that didn't make sense. In 4 years, my cats have never scratched me. My cats sleep with us here and there, but they never go above our hips on the bed and enjoy sleeping in between me and my wife's legs. Also, why did I just now start to feel it if my cats scratched me beforehand? Now confused, I asked my wife to take a photo of the scratches. When I saw the picture, I ended up with more questions. There were 3 lines, 2 running down my neck, then 1 going alongside my neck at the bottom of the other 2 lines. It's almost the shape of an L, or maybe a V? I'm posting this curious if anyone has ever heard of any demonic or evil spirit that follow newborn babies home. I'm hoping to hear I'm overthinking things and everything is okay. But I want everyone's honest opinion for what I should do from here. Thanks for listening. And there's also an update. I did a small amount of research, and after reading a few people's suggestions, I went to try and do something about the situation, just in case it was a demonic entity. I didn't have nor knew where to get sage, but I did see that sometimes just the smell of sage can help. So I went and bought some sage-scented incense and began burning that throughout the apartment. If anything, honestly, this made me feel worse. I felt more tired and drained after doing this. In the early 90s, my grandma and grandpa would go and assist a pastor in cleansing and a few exorcisms, so I decided to give my grandma a call and describe everything that had happened. She wasn't positive if it could be, but talked me through a small prayer to say while on the phone. After I got off the phone, I decided to go and take a shower. Mid-shower, all the bulbs and lights in my bathroom went out. That evening, me and my wife laid in bed over in the direction of the son's crib. We heard a young boy's voice clear as day just say, "Hey!" After the increased level of activity, I went over to my grandma's house and talked to them. They'll be coming over the next week or so to do a cleansing. I'll keep everyone posted after that. Thank you for all your advice and support. I really wish I'd paid more attention to my girlfriend, I thought as she started levitating in the air. Maybe then I would have known what our favorite song was.
My Dead Roommate by Therapy Chick.
Narrated by PA Nightmares.
We moved into our first home in February of 2016. It was an old home, built in the early 1900s, in the historical part of town. I loved it. All of the hand-carved woodwork and glass doorknobs with skeleton keys. It was exactly what I wanted and perfect for myself, 22 female at the time, and my husband, 27 male at the time. I was 3 months pregnant with our first, and we were so excited to start our family. We got all settled in. We noticed the house was very noisy. I rarely have my home quiet due to having tinnitus and always needing some kind of background noise to drown it out. On the rare occasions the house was quiet, there always was a lot of creaking and mostly moving coming from the loft-style attic we had. We shook it off to the house settling and being old. At least, that's what my dad told us. So we moved on. Spring came, and we were scrambling to get ready for the baby. The house needed a lot of work, but we were determined to get it done. The first major encounter was on a beautiful spring day. It was the weekend, and my husband and I were spending our day off working on the house. I was cleaning the kitchen, and he was working on my car in our detached garage. The way this house was built, you could see the detached garage from the window that's above the kitchen sink. I would glance out every now and then to see what he's up to. A little time passed, and I hadn't looked out at him. I started doing the dishes when I heard him walk in the living room towards the kitchen. I could feel his presence, and without turning back, I said, "Hey, babe." No answer. Wondering why he didn't answer, I looked back over my shoulder, only to be met with a dark silhouette of a man standing between the living room and the kitchen. In the blink of an eye, the figure was gone. Unsure of what I'd just seen, I yelled through the window for my husband, who was still in the garage. He came in, and frantically I told him someone was in the house. Immediately, he went and grabbed his weapon and checked all over the house. Nothing was there. In all the years we lived in that house, not once did my husband see our roommate. I saw him all the time, out of the corner of my eye, peeking around corners, but more than anything, I saw him looking into the living room from the staircase that led to the attic. In the beginning, he frightened me, but after a while, I got used to him being there. I even spoke to him sometimes, telling him I'm okay if he stays in the attic, and asking him to leave my baby alone. He seemed to have agreed, since in the 5 years my son lived there, he never saw him. When we went to sell our home, the realtor brought us some historical information she found regarding the house and our neighborhood. We found out that our house and our neighbor's house was built by a brother and sister. Our home was the brothers. The last name was the same as our current neighbor, so I figured he was most likely a descendant. I asked him one day, and he told me that the sister was his mom and his uncle owned our home. He said he was a kind man who lived alone and died in the home many years ago. I asked him about the attic, and he said that was his uncle's favorite place in the house. He kept all of his trinkets and projects up there and would spend hours working on things. I didn't tell him I believed my house was haunted, as he didn't seem like the type who would believe me. Our home was listed and sold within the same day. Sometimes I wonder about the man in the attic, if the new owners are nice to him or have even noticed his presence. I hope they give him his space, as they're only passers-by in his home like we once were.
As the Grim Reaper entered my home, I fell to my knees and begged him to let me stay. In silence, he slipped past me and opened the door to the nursery. I believe I'm experiencing something, and I don't know if I'm going crazy or if I should be worried. By Aggravating Cup 5291, narrated by Papa Scare.
Second time trying to type this because the first time didn't save before I finished. I'm on mobile rushing this, so ignore any grammatical mistakes. Ever since my earlier years in life, I believe I experienced something twice. And now, after many years of not, I think I am experiencing something again. My first two encounters happened when I was around 13 or 14 in middle school. Not as close to each other, but same year, same house, same room. The way my room was set up was I was sleeping on the top bed of a bunk bed with my older sister on the bottom. The beds were placed against the wall and a window. My very first encounter was at night/early morning. I remember waking up around 4 or 5 a.m. and was half asleep in a way that I wasn't visually seeing anything, but I was hearing sounds like running water and sounds of birds. Ultimately, something peaceful. I remember just relaxing to the noises when, all of a sudden, I felt 2 fingers pressing against my neck. Sort of like checking a pulse, but not laying the fingers flat, just poking the area very firmly. I was still half asleep and was very confused because the fingers were coming from the side of the wall and window, which was closed with the blinds down. I remember physically grabbing the fingers and feeling them. They felt like they belonged to an adult, and I knew they weren't mine or my sister's because I remember specifically feeling nails. They had long nails that felt like acrylics, which neither me or my sister had. The only person who did was my mother, who was asleep in another room. When I processed that, I remember becoming startled and jumping up. As soon as I forced my eyes open, all the sounds stopped, and I was almost out of breath. Nothing was there. My second encounter was later that same year. Same room, but different setup. We took the bunk bed apart and placed mine against the wall, with the window by my head. It was also at night when I woke up. I don't remember the time, but I remember watching YouTube videos and at one point, just laying back and closing my eyes. My mind wanders, and I remember thinking, I wish I had more friends. And at that very moment, I noticed something hover over me, because even with my eyes closed, it got darker. I tried moving, but it was like I was being held down. I remember just squirming, but that was all I could do. My body couldn't move and I couldn't open my eyes. Then I started hearing a screeching, staticky sound coming from my right ear that was facing the wall. It started quiet, but got louder and louder, to the point it started to hurt my ears. I remember thrashing, and at one point it all stopped, and I threw myself up. I was sweaty and out of breath, and like before, I didn't see anything. These 2 moments scared me shitless, and I haven't experienced anything again up until now. Currently 17, around 18, but different house, different city and different people. I think I'm experiencing something, but a part of me feels like it's just me and my imagination, especially since both of these moments were so much closer together within the same month. The first one was at night. My room is set up to where my bed is set against my wall with my mirror above my bed, and my desk across from my bed. I remember listening to music with my LED lights on, and I was just pacing. I looked at my mirror, only to see a black figure behind me. I got scared and turned around, but nothing was behind me, and when I looked back, nothing was in my mirror as well. So, I thought it was just me. But my most recent experience happened a couple of days ago, and now I just need closure and confirmation that there's even a small chance I'm not crazy. I was changing in my room facing my closed closet. I have a window below my bed, and had my blinds closed, but was where if someone were to pass by it, a very thin shadow would move across my closet door. This was in the middle of the day too. Again, I was changing and noticed a small shadow moving across my closet door. I was curious and looked at my window and saw someone passing by, and after, I looked away and went back to changing. I then noticed another shadow, except it wasn't a thin line or was moving. It was a shadow of full body. It looked like a male, skinny, hair to the neck, and a little over 5 foot from what I saw. And it was like as if someone was shining a flashlight behind someone, that type of shadow, which was impossible because of how my blinds are. The real kicker to this? It waved at me. So me being confused because that wasn't me, I looked towards my window to see if something was there, even though it would be impossible for anyone to make a full body shadow. And shocker, I see no one, not even someone passing by. I got so confused, I looked back and the shadow was gone. At this point, I'm constantly thinking about it, and I feel like I'm going crazy. I'm scared I'm going to start having more scary experiences. Is there a chance it's just me? Is there a possibility it might be something else? If there is even a chance, how can I protect myself? Literally, anything can help. I just need advice and clarification. I'm literally trembling writing this, with my heart pounding.
I frequently stay late in the office so I can catch up on work in peace and quiet, but tonight the night guard knocked on my door and told me to go home immediately. I said I would go and tried to act normal as I packed my bag, pretending I didn't know that our office didn't have a night security guard, and that I didn't notice the blood on his shoes. I Won't Drive Again at Night Alone by Anormalgirly. I know I always say that I'm an overprotected child, and I am, but sometimes I have my freedom, but that only lasts a while. Some time ago, me and my family went to a city close to ours to visit family. Everything was fine, we had lots of fun, and I saw my cousins that I hadn't seen for a while. We decided to go camping but returned to my aunt's home some hours after, a little traumatized. That's another story. But more than traumatized, I was intrigued and I wanted to see and explain what happened in the woods. So I begged my mom to let me stay another day. She said that she and my dad had to work the next day. I was on vacation, so I didn't have school. My aunt then interferes and says that I can stay and that she can take care of me. My parents trusted her. Bad idea. My aunt was a remarried woman, and the guy she married, it was not much to my family's liking. He had a lot of money, but he is very arrogant and selfish. Once we did a party to celebrate my great-granny's 99th birthday at my aunt's house. He got mad and kicked us all out. We didn't even get to sing happy birthday, but luckily he was on a business trip and we were alone. I always feel something off about him. Everything was good. My cousins and I tried to return to the woods to continue investigating, but for some reason we got there feeling like we were not going to make it. So we decided to return and go to the cinema. When we get out, it's almost 10 p.m. I called my parents to tell them that I was still there and wasn't on my way. They said it's okay, but if I was returning home, better do it next day because it was really late. It should be clarified, my mother left me her car so that my cousins could return me since his car broke down in the accident in the forest. My mother left hers just in case. Me, as a very stubborn child, decided to still return that night and don't obey. But first, I needed to say goodbye to my aunt and go for some things I left there. At the time we arrived to the house, I only heard shouting from inside the house. One of my cousins covered my ears, but was in vain. The husband, we'll call him Chobi, was home. When he saw me there, he freaked out. He started yelling at me that I shouldn't be there, I was not family, and etc. I explained to my aunt I was taking my leave. She said the same thing my parents said, and I was about to agree with Chobi interfered and said that I wasn't allowed to stay in his house for the night and that I should return home. I obeyed him because I fear Chobi. There's something weird in him that creeps me out. When me and my cousins were about to go out, Chobi again interfered and said that I'm old enough to be by myself and drive a car. It should be noted that I'm 16 years old and I'm just learning to drive. But since it was night on a not so busy road, it could go well. He didn't let my cousin or my aunt come with me. They fear him a lot. He once slapped her. Yeah, maybe Chobi gives you everything you need and maintains you, but for that you need to obey him. If you don't, bear with the consequences. So I packed my things, put them in the car. It was a short drive, like 2 hours. If I go, I could arrive at 12 a.m. and surprise my parents, because they still worried for me. So my aunt walked with me to the car and apologized for the 3rd time. I started to drive and everything was fine. I was slow because I'm still learning. But shortly before it had been an hour on the road, it started raining very hard. The truth is I felt happy because my city is in a drought, so a rain was something miraculous. So I slowed a little bit more just to be cautious. But for some reason, I got lost. I didn't know where I was anymore. I called my aunt, but nothing. My cousins, I even called Chobi. I was really stressed because I was alone at night, lost. That's how horror movies begin. I calmed down and started to drive again. I found a motel in the middle on the road. It wasn't weird because, well, it was a well-used road some of the times of the year. But it should be open, so I went there. The place looked very run down, but it had a sign saying there were some vacant rooms. I didn't hesitate and went inside, but for some reason I felt really weird. I didn't care at the time. It was late and I was wet and I wanted some sleep. I get inside and there was a receptionist, a woman in her 50s. She looked at me weirder, and after a talk, she told me she couldn't do anything. I can't have a room because I'm underage. But at the time, a guy in his 20s came. He said that he was the owner. Of course, it was a weird situation. He said that I could have a room and gave me a key with a really creepy smile. I take it and smile awkwardly. The receptionist was there with a really worried face. I was on my way to my room when I heard someone crying. I see at a distance a woman, but I felt that she wasn't normal. Like I have said before, I can see dead people, so I know when someone is not here. I ignored her. It's not that I go there and talk with ghosts. So I went to our room, but I couldn't sleep. Something was bothering me. Then I started to hear whispers, but that is normal, to be honest. Normally I have my earplugs and I can't hear anything anymore. But I could still hear a voice saying, "Get out of here." That's when I decided to listen and went out. Went to the car and stayed there for a moment. Then I saw it. The owner trying to get inside my room with a key. When he entered and saw I wasn't there, he rushed outside and started to scream, heading to my car. I rapidly hid in the lower part. He peeked inside. The fear was killing me, and little by little the tears began to come out. I had to get out of there as fast as possible. He didn't see me, luckily, I guess, so I called my grandpa. He's a police chief. He said he would do anything possible to save me, but I needed to get away from there. As soon as the owner leaves, I saw the golden opportunity to get in front of my car and drive as fast as I could. But there was a problem. I left the keys in the room. I started to cry more when I heard tapping on the window. It was a receptionist. I thought I was going to die there. I thought it was the end. But then she showed me the keys and left them there. She helped me. She saved me. The owner started to return screaming. I peeked and he was really mad. He then cursed and see the ghost woman in the pool. The man rushes there. I don't know if he was thinking it was me, but my opportunity to get the keys and run away was there or never. I did it. I turned on the car, and as soon as I did, I see the man turning and starting to run towards the car. I rushed and got out of there. 5 minutes on the road, and a car was behind me speeding. It was my end, but I don't know, God. My grandpa and dad arrived with a police car. My mama has a tracker on my phone and her car. So they knew where I was. I saw the car passing behind me and returned where it came. I stopped the car and started to cry out loud. That was the most terrifying day ever. I arrived home and told them everything, and just like before, my grandfather immediately investigated. After some weeks, the guy was arrested and turned out he was a fugitive. He had essayed women and came to kill too. I suspected that one of them was the crying woman. When I asked him about the receptionist, he told me in there they had only found the guy alive. He asked me how did the woman look, and I gave a description. His face turned pale immediately. He showed me a picture and asked me if that was the woman. I said yes, it was her, but she looked more healthy in the photo and more happy. Turns out that she was the last victim. He killed her. She was dead. I was going to be SA'd, maybe even killed, and I was saved by ghosts or spirits. Sometimes I said that my gift of seeing paranormal things is a curse, but sometimes I feel like it's a blessing. I could have been dead, but I survived thanks to those spirits. Maybe this isn't so paranormal, but like I've said before, you should be afraid of the living, not the dead. I want to end this on a happy note. My stepbrother's wife is pregnant, and she let me choose the baby's name, and it's a girl. I called her Elizabeth. Elizabeth is the name of the victim, the name of the woman that saved me, the name of the woman that I owe my life to. I wish I could help my father in the field instead of just watching him do all the hard work all alone all day. But my friend from the adjoining field says humans don't like when scarecrows move on its own. And with that, darlings, we are near the end of this video for day 2 of Halloween week. I hope each story gave you a spine-chilling feeling. That last one was definitely my favorite. Half creepy encounter, half ghost story. Not something you would expect. And 242 also remind me I'm doing this outros wrong. Forgive me. Thank you to those who let me read your stories today. I hope you all stay safe and, of course, away from me. I would like to thank Papa Scare and PA Nightmares for helping me in this story. Also, thank you to Limited Stories and the Night's End podcast for helping me with day 1 story. C242, I know how to do this. Now, if you enjoyed these stories, hit that like button and make sure it feels it. And you better have subscribed so you do not miss anything this week. If you'd like to share this story with anyone who might enjoy it, you'd be surprised how much that helps. We also have Patreon, memberships for those on YouTube, merch, which has been revamped, and PayPal. And of course, 242 would just love a comment. She is, of course, chained to that poor desk right now. It's not like she can do anything else. So why don't you tell her how you like these stories? But as always, thank you for watching and listening. Sleep tight and don't let me bite.